Hey, good evening, Scott. Looks like we are one short right now.
Great.
No, I think we've got a quorum. We had a quorum. Yes, we have a quorum.
Well, super.
Probably give it a few minutes just to see if
Yeah,
others.
I think that's a good idea. Welcome everyone who's joined us so far. Just give us a few minutes while we wait for a few more members to join, and then we'll get started. Thanks.
I didn't hear anything from anyone about not being in attendance on the POSAC.
I haven't either.
Okay.
Hey, y'all, I just wanted to let you know I'm not feeling real great. So I've got a little, cough and congestion going. So I might be turning off my monitor periodically, but I'm here and I'm paying attention.
Thanks, Blanca. Well, James, I think we've given it a couple minutes, and to be cognizant of everyone's time, why don't we go ahead and get started? Good evening. My name is Scott Way. I'm chair of the Hays County Parks and Open Space Commission. Looks like we have several of our commission members here tonight. Joining us, Blanca Loya, Carolyn Gonzalez, Catherine Nichols, and Scott Tomhave. And we may have others joining us throughout the call, but it looks like we have a quorum, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. The first order of business is any public comments. If you have already signed up, James, if you know of anyone, otherwise, if not, you can raise your hand and you'll be recognized for 2 minutes. James, can you see if anyone's raised their hand? I'm not seeing anyone.
I don't see any raised hands or I don't think that anybody has spoken up that they'd like to speak at this time.
Okay. And also joining us now, Lori Olson, one of our other commission members. Well, great. Then why don't we go ahead and move on to the next order of business, which is our presentations.
All right.
James.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. First on the agenda, we've got the Nho Youth Sportsplex. I see, I did see Heather Baca was on. Heather, and do you have others with you?
Omar and I are both actually here. Can I share my screen while he talks?
Yes, let me stop sharing mine. And you should have the ability to share your screen now.
Okay. Are we ready to present?
Okay, we can see your screen if you want to. There you go. It is all yours.
Hi, my name is Omar Baca, and my wife Heather Baca is the president of Nho. We are a long-time youth sports complex in Hays County. We are located in the northeast side of Hays County. We have a 9-acre facility that has been serving the youth of Hayes County for upwards of 25 plus years. We have been a part of NHO personally, and we have had our children go through, and we still have yet another wave of our own personal children going through the program. The goal of NHO is to impact children's lives through sports. We're really good at coaching sports and teaching kids the games, which include soccer, football, baseball. But what we really want to do, our main goal is to impact their lives as human beings and teach them work ethic and grit and manners and a variety of different things. We teach, like I tell the kids, I tell them, the 14 traits of leadership, which are bearing courage, decisiveness, dependability, endurance, enthusiasm, integrity, initiative, justice, judgment, knowledge, loyalty, and tact, and selflessness. So it's an organization that's impactful to our youth. It's it is both a blessing to serve NHO and to be a part of these children's lives, and not only impacting their lives, but it rewards us in kind. As of this last year, you see these pictures of our kids playing different sports. Currently, we've had a lot of challenges in this last year. We had, like everybody else, the strife that comes with COVID. We've had challenges of the snowpocalypse, which froze categorically all of our plumbing throughout the entire facility and broke down our facility plumbing, which is to irrigate fields, to make them playable, to facilitate bathrooms that are out of service, our concession stands, and no longer have the capacity to have water or appropriate cooking facilities. We had snowpocalypse, which took out our plumbing, and we had a tornado touchdown, which smashed some of our buildings. We've also been a current victim of nonstop burglary and vandalization. We're unable to stop and secure our buildings. We have wooden sheds, as you can see in the pictures, and we have one kind of concrete cinder block building, and it is basically out of service because of the challenges with the plumbing after the last freeze. Everything else is very, very vulnerable to theft, very vulnerable to burglary and the challenges that we've had this year. So we're not accustomed to coming to ask for assistance. We've always been self-sustaining, but because of the last year in COVID challenges, we have been pushed to the point where our volunteer corps has been greatly diminished because we're not playing sports at the moment. We have football, which is currently playing, and we have 13 families involved in football currently. Soccer has over 200 families, and it's the only thing that we have running consistently right now, and they've got about 200 plus families. Baseball, which is normally about 200 families, is 100% out of service. We're not serving the community now because of the challenges, and baseball was affected mostly by that tornado and the impact to those fields and the irrigation issues as well. So our ability to impact the community has been greatly diminished. Our brand of work is greatly muted in the community. This portion of Hayes County is growing. You can tell by all the development that's going around on Goforth Road, and the traffic is increasing, and we're seeing a lot of people moving into this space. We would love to be in a position where we're asking to be able to increase our capacities, to be able to serve more. And we'd love to do that, but we need to be able to provide secure buildings that will house all of our equipment and make us a little more theft proof. We would like fencing. It's 9 acres. So fencing to keep us at least a little bit more secure. And then infrastructure issues such as our plumbing issues. We were at the front of the Hayes County dam project, and they called it project number 5. During that time when project number 5 was there, we had the ribbon cutting for the facility at Hayes at NHO, and the construction company, they asked to park in our space and use our space to facilitate their heavy equipment, and we gladly agreed because we're that organization, and we play well with others. They said that they would put our ingress and egress and parking space back in service, and they said even better than it was before. Well, it was a 2-lane entry, and they reduced it to 1 lane, and it is compact gravel, and it is out of service. And our kids that are 16-year-old kids that can drive, that are playing soccer, when they leave the facility, it's kind of a dangerous space. It's become a dangerous space. And so the ingress and egress is tough. We need infrastructure issues to fix that. And we'd also like to put back into service our ability to be self-sustaining. Those buildings that were wrecked, destroyed, vandalized, theft issues, we'd love to put them back in service so that we can become self-sustaining again, and not have to come with our hat in hand and humble beggings, because we do like being self-sustaining. We don't like having to bother or ask upon the taxpayers this, but we're in this position now, and we do good service, and we do great work with the youth. And right now we're greatly diminished, and this is why we're here to ask for assistance from this bond issue. And we appreciate your time. We're open for questions. We really did wish that we were able to put together a much more high-tech, good-looking presentation. But to be quite frank with you, we can't afford the engineers, the designers. We have funded a lot of this, and a lot of NHO, and a lot of the scholarships have come out of our own pocket. And we cannot afford that at this moment to be able to put down that presentation. And we ask that you take mercy on our humble presentation and take those things into consideration. If you would love to, I would love to show you the facility, to see you there and with your boots on the ground to see it, and you could see the great potentials and the great service that we do. And we thank you very much for your time. And I'm open for any questions if you have them.
Well, thank you for that presentation. And it certainly seems like a year of calamities and difficulties that have faced your organization. And I'm sorry to hear that. I know what you're doing is good for the community and has been a benefit for so many years. Members of POSAC, do you all have questions?
I have a couple questions. Omar, do you guys have a budget in mind here? Have you done any kind of budget review and when you did your package for POSAC?
Yes, we sought out different contractors for fencing, also to replace our. We have wooden sheds, and so we've looked into the different buildings, that the metal buildings. Some of them are the container style storage buildings they're pretty affordable. We talked to plumbing. We talked to folks that do grading and repair of driveways and things of that nature. But it came down to the fact that we had a great big general giant number, And it came down to the fact that we need we need assistance, and hopefully that if the county sees fit to kind of look forward with us and maybe take some more steps with us, they can help us get that projection. And we needed engineering because we have drainage issues. We needed kind of landscape design architecture to maximize what we were doing. And, you know, those are kind of the Cadillac version of this. But the simple solutions to solve all of these things were putting us in that $500,000 ask number. I wish I could present you with hard numbers, but those numbers would be false because of the fact that they're not put together by a professional engineer and it's not buttoned down. These are many different independent small contractors, and this is kind of a larger scale job. That's probably not the best answer you wanted, but it's the best answer that I can give. That we saw within the packet that it said if you look forward to moving forward with us, that the county might be able to assist us in being able to button down what those figures and numbers are. And we do have we've had master plans and goals for a long time, and right now all of those capital improvements and vision for the future are all on hold because we've got to turn back around and repair and get back on track to serve the community again. And we're not in that space, and that's what we're asking for.
Would that $500,000 get you back to self-sustaining operations?
Yes, sir. I believe it would get us back to a healthy place of being able to self-fund ourselves. And so that self-funding would be the talk of our concession stands and things of that nature that put it forward. If we were able to put one of these barn dominium style buildings up and it makes for an assembly, that would help us for rental purposes and things of that nature. And that income goes completely back to serving the community, or 100%. And it's a very pure business model in the way we've operated in before. And I believe that would get us to where we need to be. And I'm open to somebody scrutinizing that and getting better estimates than I am, because I'm sure there's much better people. As you see, this is an ambulance, not a construction truck. And so I'm sure that there's better minds for it.
Well, I admire what you do. I'm a volunteer firefighter, so I appreciate what you do wholeheartedly. Yeah, so thank you for that. And then did y'all have any insurance to cover any of the damages?
No, we didn't. So we were in a position where financially we were not in a position to have any of the insurances to cover any of these things. And that's why it hit us so hard.
Yeah.
We had graduated a giant class of our NHO family. The families that had been there for 6 years with their kids there was a huge wave of them, and their kids have all moved on. And so the parents kind of graduated on, and we were the last folks in that wave to be a part of it. Many of those folks, and we have younger children that are coming through the wave. So we've got, Heather and I have 6 more years dedicated to NHO before we hand off the reins to somebody else who will give the pound of flesh back to it.
Well, thank you, Omar, for answering the questions, and thank you for your service, both to the community with the youth organization and also as an EMT. So thank you so much.
I did fail to mention something that we're very proud of right now is that our soccer program last year was able to help some of our youth athletes, 5 of them. And they're the state champions. Okay, here in Hays County, we produced the state champions. We produced 5 collegiate scholarship players. The projection is this year we're looking at 12 to 14 collegiate scholarships coming out of this program. And the way we encounter our kids, and we've supplied Texas State with some players, Texas Lutheran with some football players. We try to engage our local universities because we want our young people modeling after youth athletes. It serves the youth athletes that are in college because it teaches them that, hey, there's somebody young looking up to you, and you have to meet that higher standard. And it teaches our young athletes that school is important, and there's somebody that looks just like you that made it to college and is getting successful and using these pathways and these talents to better themselves as a whole for the long run. So I just want to say that even though we've had these challenges, our soccer program is still producing college scholarships, and so we're at about 18 in the last 18 months. So we're very proud of them.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question from Scott's questions, which are related to both you said this grant would get you in a place where you would be self-sustaining with your operations, but that before you did not have the proper insurance to insure your facilities. Is the new normal of operations going to include insurance for your facilities?
I can actually speak to that for you, Lori. It is. We when Omar and I stepped into the board right before we stepped in right before the pandemic hit, it's in like January before. That was one of the top things on our list actually was the insurance, and the organization just didn't have there was insurance for players through the sports organizations, but as we looked at insurance for the facility, it was just it was too expensive, and that's where we were looking at ways to generate the funds for it. And then since the break-ins and such have happened and all the storm damage, it was kind of out of reach because we had no income coming in because there were no programs going on. So it's definitely on the very high on our list. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
And I would say it's probably first on the list. It's very high. It's probably number one or number two. So thank you for reinforcing that.
It looks like Carolyn, I don't know, did Carolyn have a question or a comment?
I just had a few. First of all, I might have missed it. What does NHO stand for?
So NHO, it stands for literally NHO at the moment.
Okay.
It used to be the North Hayes Optimist.
Okay.
And so we were part of the Optimist organization for a very long time, and we have not rebranded from the Optimist brand. And the NHO, and the reason we are not part of the Optimist, it's a great organization. It's a worldwide organization. They serve youth all over. And Heather's dad was a long-term optimist in El Paso, and they did wonderful things in their organization in El Paso. But we were paying fees and paying dues of monies that we were scraping together to pay. We were paying dues and fees, and we weren't getting anything in return. And so the value was we were paying to this worldwide organization, but in kind. There was no support or anything. There was no opportunities for us to seek grants through them, things of that nature. So that's why you see NHO just standing for NHO. And we've actually thought about rebranding to a youth academy name and specific to Hayes. But everybody, we've been here 25 odd years. Everybody knows NHO. Nobody knows what it stands for, but they know NHO.
All right. And then I had another question about the proposal. There was a selection that's on there that about shooting sports. Is that accurate, or is that
shooting sports is not firearms. It's not rifles, any of those things. It's so our first thing would be, if we were to add anything, would be to add track, and then to add more public basketball courts. We have one public basketball court out front that's damaged, and we've only got one hoop left, and it's always used by the community. Shooting sports would be something of the nature of archery, and that was not compound bows, but small archery, like a facility where the Boy Scouts could come and do their archery things and things of that nature, and teach safety, because safety is a big deal in how we operate. So, but
Okay.
we're not talking firearms.
All right, just wanted to understand that. Thank you.
Hey, Omar and Scott, again, I was looking at the map, looking at the facility, which I wasn't familiar with until now. And who owns the land there?
So NHO was gifted to, I believe it was gifted from a family, and it was a parcel of 9 acres. And it was gifted specifically for the purpose of serving youth in the community. So our mission has to be, by definition, has to be youth-oriented and in service of youth. If a nonprofit organization were to relinquish it and let go of it, it would become a ward of the county. So it would become a burden of the county. And so that 8 or 9 acres, if we stop being NHO and we stop giving our pound of flesh and volunteerism, it becomes a burden of the county. That being said, one of the things that we would love to entertain is tactically, as you see the emergency service unit. One of the things that we wanted to consider in a subject matter we want to approach with the county is, in that area of the county is growing tremendously, and the service area, we would love, and we'd be very open to a 99-year open dollar lease for an EMS station, a sheriff's substation, a fire station, any of those things across the front. We believe that branding up front, one, would help our security issues in a giant way. Even if it was an EMS station, there's somebody there in the front of that space 24 hours a day. But the sports attached to it, you have a group of county buildings in the front that are emergency service units. And then right behind that, you have a public health organization. We approach this as public health. We responded to the COVID emergencies, and we did the mask and sanitization and giveaways and things of that nature for the community. We did public education and things of that nature in our facility. So we would really like to actually take that and improve upon it. As you can see, that's something that's near and dear to my heart.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Members, other questions for Omar?
I invite all of you, if you would like to take the sortie, the adventure, to come see us and host you at the actual facility, because I think if you were to lay eyes on it, understand the community that it impacts, you would be excited and highly motivated to help us on this journey and to be a part of it yourselves. I think that it's once you see it, I don't think there's no public parks. Hays County has no public parks in that space serving that piece of the community in that space. And so we essentially are a Hays County public park. We're just run by a nonprofit.
Well, I do have a follow-up question if I could. So what are the next steps of the process?
Sure. So we are, today is our last meeting where we're hearing from all the different applications. And then we're going to go into a scoring process where we score each individual project based on, and the scoring criteria is online on the POSAC portion of the Hays County website. And you can see how we go about making that scoring based on our 2012 master plan. And then from that, we make a recommendation to the commissioners. Ultimately, what we are as a body to recommend projects to the commissioners and provide them advice on the scoring that we see appropriate for the projects. But it's for the commissioners court to make the final decision. And so following our scoring, the commissioners court is going to start making decisions. In the meantime, you might see follow-up from James and his team asking more questions, more details, because they're also administering this project, this process and the entire bond project. And so in the event that there's an award made, that there will be contracts associated with ensuring that the taxpayers' money is funding the projects that are being asked for in the individual applications. And James, if I missed anything, please let me know.
I wanted to speak out to some of those requirements and some of the motivations behind the grant about environmentally conscious and proactive in those mindsets. We are absolutely 100% thrilled to do low impact electric, and if we are able to pull off solar, and we're right next to major drainage and things of that nature. With being with project number 5, that's the dams that's across the street from us, we get all the watershed issues that are going there, and impervious covers and things of that nature. We're very mindful of those things, and if I know that those things increase cost sometimes, but if it was seen fit and part of the requirements, we're absolutely 100% compliant with courting all of those things and being compliant with all of those asks.
Omar, I appreciate that. Thank you. You know, some projects need to do that more than others, given, you know, the environmental impact. And, you know, I think everyone's going to try to do their best. And so I appreciate the sentiment. And, you know, I think each organization will have to figure out how the funding that is available to them can fit the needs. And there are needs for kids for sports. There are needs for open space for nature to thrive. And there are different needs out there in the community, but I appreciate what you're talking about.
Thank you, sir.
Members, any other questions for NHO? Well, thank you all for what you do for the community and for the youth. Appreciate it. It's people like you that make this place better and impact the lives of children throughout their entire lives in the community that they'll ultimately be part of. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for listening.
Absolutely. So James, can you introduce our next applicant?
Yes, so next we've got Wimberley Youth Sports Association. Jared Robinson, I believe, is going to give the presentation. Jared, if you want to share your screen, and then if you've got others that are joining you, if you want to introduce them. Or
Yes, sir. Yeah, absolutely. Let me, I'll share this with you real quick. All right. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
All right. My name is Jared Robinson. I have had the pleasure and the honor of being part of Wimberley Youth Sports Association, formerly HCRA, for many years. I grew up in Wimberley. I moved here when I was 7 years old, became involved with the youth sports organization through playing with it. My father was the president at one point, and I am currently 39 years old. I have a daughter who plays Wimberley Youth Sports Association. So I think one of the big things that I look for in a youth sports organization is its longevity too. Obviously, the idea of giving back, paying it forward. And that's kind of why I'm here right now, to be honest with you. I am a past president and currently with the growth team for WISA. And I appreciate all the commissioners' time right now, all the committee members and everybody. I want to give you just a smidge background on what WISA is. We started in 1971. It was started with Sonny Gold was the president, Steve Meeks was the vice president. Sonny Gold was obviously the justice of the peace at the time as well for the Wimberley area, but it was created to bring sports to the Wimberley Valley. That's in essence exactly what it was. It was played at Rio Benito. It was played at the former Bowen School, which is now HEB. In 1972, Steve Meeks became the president and introduced adult softball. So it is not only a just youth sports program, it also allows adults the opportunity to get out there and most of the time have a good time, and hopefully nobody gets injured, but it allows everybody in the community to be a part of it and to kind of participate in it. We've grown absolute leaps and bounds over all of the years. We'll talk a little bit more about those as we go. As more kids were added, again, as you can see, T-ball was added, minor league baseball, later Major League Baseball was added. In 1984, the field acquisition, which our current location is Jacobs Well Road, just off of the VFW property. When the VFW purchased, there was 20 acres there. And as you can see in the history there by Steve Meeks, the former coach and one of the original presidents of it, there was 4 acres that really was kind of the VFW didn't need and really couldn't afford. And that was an opportunity for HCRA at that time to really get kicked off. And so in 1984, that field acquisition was taken and 3 fields were built with a concession stand. And they have been operating really in the same capacity since 1984. Sports have been added throughout the time. 1986, Little Dribblers, our basketball program was added in partnership. We do facilities agreements with WISD, Wimberley Independent School District. 1992, our youth football program, our first youth football program was added, and that includes football and cheerleading for youth. And then in our most recent, 2016, Wimberley Youth Soccer has been added, which we do facilities use agreements and rentals with Blue Hole Park here in Wimberley. And that is where we currently conduct those. So with the 1984 acquisition of the parks here in Wimberley off of Jacobs Well Road, it is a situation where we're too big. We've grown leaps and bounds. And so what we're asking for is the ability to expand our operation and with help to be able to service more kids in the area, bring additional things to this Wimberley Valley. And a lot of teams play here in Wimberley. They obviously are part of our programs. Kids from Dripping Springs, kids from Kyle, Manchac. We host teams here in the Wimberley Valley from anywhere. Oak Hill comes here. So it's not just Wimberley that will benefit from it. A lot of people, tourists will come into town as well. As I go through these, this is our current numbers. As you can see right here, all the way back from 2011, we have over doubled in size with the projection. I actually think it's probably going to be around 1,500 kids in the 2022 year for next year. This year, it's at 1,381. That does not include our October Little Dribblers basketball, which will be 200 plus, I would imagine, that will be added to that 1,381 number. Very similar to what the gentleman just moments ago, the COVID 2020 year kind of got everybody a little bit. We were able to do some fall sports later on in the year, but our spring sports were canceled. And so you can see the 776, that is the dip and the decline in that. So steadily over the past 10 years, we've grown and we truthfully look to continue to grow. And that's our goal. Our goal is growth. That's what we want everybody in this valley to be able to participate, their kids, no matter if they're good, just decent players, recreation players, or they have aspirations of going to college. And there's many members of our program that have went on to play college baseball. In fact, Coach Steve Meeks, one of our original presidents, both of his sons, Matt Meeks and Michael Meeks, both went on to play at the next level in college baseball and college football. So, I think that should be the goal and the mission for every single youth sports organization, is not only to bring, not only to advance kids and to allow them the opportunity to play, but obviously take this to kids that normally may not have the opportunity to do that. On the top of the screen right there, you'll see we average about 7.4% annual scholarships to underprivileged kids. And what that is that's done by scholarship. So it's requested by a parent upon registration that they may not be able to actually pay for their entries, their league fees, things, and we figure out a way to get it. They're going to play And it's a situation, hardships come, and we understand that, but we don't want to turn away a kid. We never want to turn away a kid who wants to be able to be part of something and, get out there and be active. That's a huge bonus for all of the Valley. We average about 4 to 8 scholarships as the kids go through our program into the high school and become graduates of Wimberley High School or other schools in the area. We provide scholarships every year to them as well. We go to the scholarship banquets and we provide anywhere from 4 to 8 scholarships annually to those kids who have participated in our programs throughout the years. There's been obviously over 20 in the last 5 years, which is awesome that we can give back to those again, who have been part of our organization. I think that's a way for every organization to kind of pay back and continue to do great things. On the screen now, that's a cost comparison for what Wimberley is versus some of the surrounding areas, San Marcos, Dripping Springs, Blanco, and Kyle. We have just over 5,000 people, what we would consider to be in the Wimberley and Wood Creek communities. The majority of our prices are very competitive, and a lot of times they are less than what we find around here. And that is pretty much outstanding for 2 reasons. One, the volunteer basis that we get here with Wimberley Youth Sports Organization is second to none. It's phenomenal. There is a board and a group of people that give tirelessly, whether it's time, money, or both, to our organization. It is a 100% complete private funded organization. There is not any city money that comes into this. And as of the current moment, there's really no county funds that have been into this. So it is a 100% to this point self-sustaining operation as a nonprofit. And it's all done by the people who live here, the people that play in our sports programs, and the volunteers that sign up every year to really give their time, their effort, and everything that they do. Whether it be painting a fence, and even if they're not on our board, we'll get people out to come out and assist and help out. And so I can't say enough great things about really just the Wimberley Valley and everybody in it. It's phenomenal that we even have the opportunity to do what we do. And that is probably the reason that we're growing at such a pace, which brings me to the next point. We have entered into, as you can see on your screen, a memorandum of understanding between Wimberley Independent School District and Wimberley Youth Sports Association for acquisition of a 20-acre tract with a 25-year lease to build a new sports facility complex behind the current Blue Hole Elementary School. The Wimberley ISD built an absolute beautiful facility right there off of Winters Mill Parkway and Ranch Road 12. They've done some unbelievable things with keeping green usage, water systems, things of that nature. All of those things, Wimberley ISD and Wimberley Youth Sports have both come into a mutual agreement, as you see in front of you, that we will continue those things. And again, it's a 25-year lease. We want to keep it as green friendly as possible. I have had many discussions with our superintendent, Dwayne York. We've had other key members of the community be part of this as well. And so this is a signed document from the WISD. Dwayne York has signed this, and it is incredible that we have the ability to even consider this in the current time right now, because with the values of land and everything that's going around, being a 100% self-sustaining organization, a 501c3, this would be next to impossible. It really would be something that would truly change our youth sports organization, our youth sports program here in the Wimberley Valley. I think it is an absolute game changer for the kids, for the community, and for everybody here. And we're blessed to even have the opportunity to be discussing this with y'all. A large part of this is the Wimberley School District. And as you can see there, the signatures by both our current president, Kelly Latz, and the superintendent, Dwayne York, for the agreement if we can make something possibly work. This is the CAD drawing for what possibly could be a new complex for Wimberley Youth Sports Association. So what we're hoping to do is a new 4-leaf clover facility, concession stand in the middle. The 2 on the left are multi-use. Those are soccer/football fields. And I said earlier, we have soccer and football inside of our program right now. This would give us the ability to grow those programs even more. Soccer has grown incredible amounts in the 5 years that we have had it here in Wimberley. Terry Harrison was our original president of that. He did unbelievable things when he came down and sat down with myself and Kelly Latz, the current president. And he has taken that to, I believe, far better than anybody ever could have believed it. And so this is an opportunity for us to kind of lay out a facility and what we're looking at. And so the far left area, future development, could be many different things. We've discussed this possibilities with WISD a little bit of the idea that maybe whatever mutually we could come across, I guess. There's many possibilities in this town, whether it be tennis courts. Of course, we have a state-of-the-art tennis facility that WISD's put in there, but whether that be anything else that could be possibly needed, it would be right there, and that would be unbelievable. I know everybody in this town has watched our swim team grow and grow. The possibility of an indoor pool right there, kind of a YMCA in Dripping Springs, would be unbelievable. So there's many possibilities that could go from this. Next page here, I have gotten some bids already. I've went out and acquired some bids from a sports turf grass company in Dripping Springs called KMI Sports Construction. They do turf grass all over the United States. They, in fact, did the Minnesota Vikings practice field. So they are very reputable, excellent company. They do many things. And I've sent this to y'all, so y'all have a copy of it. And of course, more than happy to share anything with you again, but this is kind of a cost breakdown of what it would cost for everything there as far as facility to have turf on it, which would take away from the water responsibility, which the Wimberley Valley has. You know, that is a concern here. That's if you live here or if you're anywhere close, that's a concern in Wimberley. And that's something that we obviously want to make sure of, that we are aware of that. And the school district has definitely made us aware that this is something that we are very concerned about as far as the usage of water. With the one water system already at Blue Hole Elementary, Mr. York made it very apparent that that is going to be something that we really have to discuss. So this gives us the ability possibly to bypass that with water usage, really at that point maintaining just concession stands, bathrooms, and then common area landscaping and things of that nature. So nothing near what would currently be needed for a sports facility complex. So this is page 2 of that. The second pages are the baseball fields. First page was the multi-use fields. And again, it just breaks down 4 fields, goes through linear feet. Again, all these are professional numbers from the company KMI Construction. Again, they're out of Dripping Springs over in the Henley area. This, I've asked some of the community to give us letters of support for this. 1, for the history that we've talked about. 2, we've done a lot of business here in town, and a lot of the people here in town have had their kids and in fact themselves be part of our program. And several of those people have graciously enough given me that. This one right here, Caroline Adams is the branch manager for Ozona Bank. When we did a renovation and a rebuild of our concession stand, at that time, we had to take a loan out to do that. That loan has been paid off in full. It is now completely free and clear to HCRA, the owner of the property itself. And so we asked her to give this. This is a letter of good standing, showing that WYSA has remained in good standing with no history of this insufficiency, to again just show the self-sustainment of the organization. First letter we're going to come to right here, and we'll let y'all read these. This is from Judge Andrew Cable. He is, I actually had the honor and the privilege of coaching his kids in baseball as well. His wife, Rebecca, actually went through our programs as well. So very good, well-respected gentleman here in the community. Sidna Barossa, she is a former board member. And the reason I asked her to write us a letter, she was actually the signee or one of the signees on the original note that was taken for the concession stand that, as I mentioned a minute ago, was paid off. And this is a letter of support from her. And she personally put her name on the dotted line for Wimberley Youth Sports Association and HCRA. This is a letter from her stating that obviously we have her support. Next one here is from the owners of Ace Hardware, who have been a phenomenal supporter of WYSA over all of the years. You can see there in 1987, Tad Dagenhart and his wife, Christy. Tad was a player in Wimberley Youth Sports Association, graduated from Wimberley High School, and has been absolutely phenomenal, as I said, for Wimberley Youth Sports Association as a sponsor, as a supporter, many times he has brought things out there that we didn't even ask for. And he said, hey, this is needed. I'm willing to help. I want to help. This is for the kids of Wimberley. Him and I've had that conversation so many times, and very grateful to have them a part of our organization. So with that, I open to questions. I'm more than happy to answer, and I appreciate the opportunity to even be considered for this. And again, I thank you all for your time.
Jared, thank you for that presentation and for what Wimberley Sports has done for the community for so many years. It's nice to hear that history. So many volunteers have made this happen, and without your work, like many others, we wouldn't have this kind of facility proposed to us, and look forward to hearing more about it. POSAC members, do you all have questions?
I guess I'll ask a quick one. Hey, Jared, this is Lori. So just to be clear, you guys are looking at a quote for plastic turf, even on the baseball fields, like everything that would be grass.
That is correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Everything on the facility that is the actual sports field itself
Sports
would be
field,
turf.
okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Now,
Are there any other,
POSAC
I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
Lisa, POSAC members, the total ask is 4 million.
Okay.
That was
Do
the
you have any
breakdown.
other folks that are going to be or organizations that will be contributing to the project?
So the Wimberley, obviously WISD at this point in that $4 million, the request, I think it was 4 point something, whatever it was. In that, there is land acquisition fee that is in there in that build. And so with this agreement of the memorandum of understanding with WISD, that $4 million does come down because acquisition fee, it would come off of that ask. So yes, ma'am, there's, I believe the value on that is put at about 1.2 million for a 20-acre tract. And again, even the possibility of a long-term lease with Wimberley Independent School District is an absolute honor.
So is your ask 3 million then, or 4 million? And then
Yes, ma'am. It would be reduced by the acquisition because there's not actually a land acquisition that would need to take place prior to when we turned in the actual request. Those conversations really were nowhere near what they're at now. And obviously with a signed memorandum of understanding with the school district, that previously was done with the idea that we were going to have to purchase land. And I want to say they put about 875,000 for land acquisitions.
okay. What's the longevity of the artificial turf? How long does it last before you would need to replace that?
So it varies on different things. Usage is really the biggest one, and maintenance is really the biggest one. So there's many of them that could last the 25 and 30 years. The product itself that was quoted to us is a better product. It is actually the same product that is used on the high school football field and the high school baseball fields currently in Wimberley. So it is a product that, in my opinion, talking to the owner of KMI, that it should be a 25 to 30 year. In fact, they do offer a warranty as well if there is any problems and issues based on faulty product, defaulty products, not necessarily poor maintenance, but they do stand behind their products.
How long is the warranty?
I don't know exactly. I was going to see if it was in this slide. I believe the 20-year conversation has come up for normal wear and tear.
Okay. Another question I was just going to ask is there a possibility, obviously, of phasing this project where you could do like 2 baseball fields and a football field and then do more later? Or are you just you're hoping to do the whole thing at once?
Absolutely. We could phase it. And I truly think that that would, the goal would be to do everything, but phasing it is absolutely an option. At this point, with our growth continuing, I think anything that we could do would possibly be phenomenal.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Other questions?
Also want to just put for the record, I am a member of the WISD Board of Trustees. And when the Board of Trustees considered whether or not to vote to support this memorandum of understanding, I recused myself and I did not participate in that vote. So I just want to enter that here for the record. Thanks.
Thanks, Lori. if there were the opportunity for some reuse water available, could this project be used without artificial turf? And I'm not saying that I think that there's good or bad with artificial turf. I think that the water saving opportunities are important for our valley. But if there were some reuse water available sufficient to water the fields, is that something that your organization would be willing to entertain?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, that conversation, Jason Donaldson, who is over the golf course in Wimberley, they use current effluent water from Aqua Texas. It is across Ranch Road 12 at the current moment, so it is not stretched across the road, is my understanding. But I did breach that and have that conversation with him. He is one of the gentlemen that I spoke with about this project, just ideas, him being in the turf grass management field, and getting different, kind of layouts. He was part of that. That did come up. The idea would be, how does it get stretched across the road, and what type of capacity does Aqua Texas have with additional effluent? But yes.
Yeah, I'm glad you all considered that, because I've heard discussions that maybe there's a way to get some of that effluent, to the extent that we're producing more in the Wimberley Valley, could come over to those fields. I've heard about that talk, and
Yes, sir. Yeah,
it's still preliminary.
Yeah, it did not reach the point where I actually went to Mr. Robinson over at Aqua Texas, with it being, again, at that point, it was kind of a preliminary stage. I did not speak to Aqua Texas specifically, but I did meet Jason Donaldson, who again is the golf course, and he kind of laid out and showed me where the effluent lines currently are, and they do extend fairly close to where this project was. It would have to be bored under Ranch Road 12 and buy some houses. There would be some difficulty, but there is the possibility if everything could be worked out. Yes.
Thanks, Jared. Are there
So if
questions
that
for
was,
Jared?
if that was done, then obviously that would completely change the pricing and the design and everything like that. Have you guys looked kind of more or less at cost comparisons there, like including all of the infrastructure to develop to bring the water over?
I have not. No, ma'am.
Okay.
I
right.
have not. One of the conversations that we had was really kind of trying to present this in the aspect of trying to keep this in the area of the turf, with the idea that the water usage, that conversation did breach to the point where we did talk to Jason, but no, ma'am, I did not run any cost.
You haven't gone into
comparisons
details.
as far as
Okay.
what the difference would be. Included in the KMI bid as well, all the fences, backstops, dugouts, the actual infrastructure itself of the complex minus concession stand, all of those things is included in that bid as well. That's not just the turf grass. That's the concrete ring around it. That's the fences. That's dugouts. That's backstops. So that is actually the infrastructure with the baseball fields too.
Hey, Jared, did you have any other competitive bids for all that work?
I did not. I reached out to two other companies. One was an Austin company, and I hate to say we kind of got a little bit of an idea that they really didn't have an interest. The exact term that they used was, our time right now is spent out in the fields, and if this project gets further along, then we'd love the opportunity to look at it. But at this point, we're not going to be able to bid it because of the preliminary stage and the idea that at this point it is a hope for us. Basically, I was told that until it becomes more of a concrete, more than just an idea and actually concrete, that they would not be able to bid it for me. So that is the reason that the KMI bid here is the alone one.
Okay, thanks. And then just real quick, sorry, one more question. This says that all the grading is not included. You have a separate budget line item for that, I guess?
So correct. So we have a member of our organization who has a construction company, and a lot of that cost, he has kind of volunteered to really kind of take that headway and really go with it. The parking lots, things of that nature. Again, I talked earlier about the volunteer base and the organization, that there's so many great people that we're going to try to minimize that as much as possible. Really, materials would kind of be really the cost on that one. We wouldn't know more until we actually have kind of a boots on the ground. The engineering paperwork, Mr. York has talked about providing that to us. And so really without the slope and the undulation, I know it's not a great deal, but that is not included in the KMI bid. That is correct.
It'd be great if you had a letter from them showing that they are willing to provide that in-kind work. It would be helpful for us in being able to give you credit for that as we go into scoring. So the sooner rather than later, you can get that letter, specifics, get as much as you can, and we'll consider that based on what you have at the time. But
okay. Yeah, I can get you, and I can get you kind of a breakdown of, we had discussed, I discussed the parking lot area with them, and part of the parking lot's location currently was in conversations with the school district. There is the possibility future of a performing arts center being put behind the current Blue Hole Elementary School. And so the reason for the location for that parking lot where it is right now would be the possibility of sharing that parking lot with them on that bottom side. Again, with the opportunity that they're providing us, it's pretty phenomenal. So the location of that is there. And we did run some dry numbers on that with the gentleman I'm speaking to you about. And I'll get you a paper as far as what that was. I believe that number was right around $350,000 for asphalt of the parking lot.
Jared, one more question. Did you guys, did y'all sign a lease with them, or is this just an MOU at this point in time? So, and then.
Correct. Yeah, at this point, it's just an MOU until we kind of see, what type of funding and things of that are available.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
other questions or comments for Jared? All right, well, Jared, thanks again for what you do
Thank
for
you.
the community. Yep, Lori, you have some?
I just said thank you.
Hey, Scott, Scott, I do have one more question to and a
ahead,
request
Scott.
for Jared. Jared, can you please submit like a total budget? I mean, I know you filled out the PIF form, but I'm not, unless Alexandra, if you have it, apologies, but it's not in the folder for the project. It's just kind of the rough breakdown in terms of $4 million, kind of big numbers. And I think it'd be helpful to have a little bit more detail, because obviously this is going to require some permitting, some engineering, probably road cuts. I don't know if that's TxDOT or county, things of that sort. So just,
yeah, there wouldn't be an actual road cut as it's already currently it's on the property.
okay.
For there, but you are correct. There would be some engineering and some other things that would need to be done as far as, like I said, the slope, the layouts, and all of those things. Just kind of looking at that. And yes, to answer your question, I'm absolutely more than welcome to get you kind of an overall cost breakdown on it.
All right, thanks. And you said you're going to send this presentation so it can be added to the folder and for the record.
100%, yes, sir.
Okay, and the bids from KMI, that'd be great.
And Jared, too, when you submit the new budget, you should probably separate out like the land value as match, as well as this grading, that this volunteer is going to supply. So you have your actual costs, and then you have your match that you've already got in hand. That helps us to see that more clearly.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, well, no other questions. Thank you, Jared, for your time and the work that you do for the community. It's greatly appreciated. I know that the youth appreciate it. I know that the Valley appreciate and Hays County appreciate what you do. Thank you.
I thank you all for your time as well.
All right, James, I think we're going to hear from Wimberley Valley Watershed again. If you'd like to introduce presenters for the next item.
Yes, so Wimberley Valley Watershed Association is going to present Dry Cypress Creek Trail and Roy Creek Canyon Reserve. I believe David Baker is going to start off with the Dry Cypress Creek Canyon Trail, and then right on, we'll finish with Roy Creek. So David, you should have the ability. Okay, you've already got it up. It's all yours.
Thanks, James and Scott and committee members. Can you all hear me all right? Well, thank you guys for your service, and this is the last night of presentation, so congratulations on that. Yeah, I'm David Baker, Wimberley Valley Watershed Association. I'm here to present on the Dry Cypress Creek Trail, and WVWA seeks to reinvest first round funding of the Coleman's Canyon Preserve and additional fee simple land purchase and conservation easements to strengthen the Cypress Creek Watershed Conservation Network. Collaborating with our researchers and community leaders to restore Coleman's Canyon and add it to the Jacobs Well Natural Area Preserve. We've identified some further lands and open space that are in alignment with the Hays County Parks and Open Space Plan. Did that advance okay? Are you guys seeing the second slide? Okay. The Dry Cypress Trail project is using Coleman's Canyon Preserve seeds that can close on an additional 79 acres and further protection of the Jacobs Well Groundwater Management Zone also with the understanding with an adjacent landowner of a potential donated conservation easement on 39 acres that would be conserved through permanent easement. So these projects would protect the karst aquifer recharge zone and create more recreational opportunities through expanding the trail network and connecting to the Wimberley Bat Cave, which is a really amazing karst feature that's about a mile north of Jacobs Well on the Coleman's Canyon Preserve that the county will be acquiring. And that would be, preserving the environment and the habitat, and be just a great benefit to the overall conservation efforts. And there's a tributary there to Cypress Creek, we think that this park, this preserve, is a big economic multiplier to the valley. So the regional context here, as we all know, the fastest growing county in the United States. The growth is impacting pretty much every aspect of our lives, and is the good news and bad news. With it comes impacts to water, but also brings tremendous wealth and prosperity to the region. So, protecting this land and providing these linkages in the plan for the Wimberley Valley Trails project is really exciting. And this trail would be following the Dry Cypress back to Jacobs Well. And so this is a part of a cluster of high priority conservation lands that the Meadows Center at Texas State University put together a couple of years ago. But much of this cluster contains parcels under 20 acres in size, and thus this new natural acreage is one of the county's few conservation opportunities in this zone, adding to Coleman's Canyon via the trail and program-related investment projects that would protect both surface and groundwater into Jacobs Well, the karst features, the golden cheek warbler habitat, the groundwater recharge and flood mitigation as well. So analysis, designated Coleman's Canyon as perhaps irreplaceable to conserve the watershed. This is kind of showing that development and where the current natural area is, the Coleman's tract, and then this Dry Cypress trail tract that is right here that cuts through the middle of that Wood Creek North area. So the site conditions, Dry Cypress Trail, contribute substantially to Coleman's Preserve project, bolstering trail access and buffers to the Bat Cave. Among other karst sites, 46 acres of golden cheek warbler habitat, prize invertebrate species, riparian vegetation, water quality buffers. The trails are readily accessible for the general public to use as add-ons to the county's adjacent Coleman's Canyon and Jacobsville Natural Area investments. It's creating an expanded upland experience supporting by the county's plan. Extensive trails, incredible canyon vistas. Hays County residents of all ages, cultures, and income levels will enjoy this this beautiful area and the really diverse flora and fauna of a significant conservation center. So it's just a really diverse, beautiful area. This is kind of showing site assessment there. This is where the Bat Cave is. This is the in holding that the adjacent landowner is willing to sell, and this lower leg is the fee simple part. This would be the conservation easement piece, and would link into this lower area here. So these site potentials, I think, Dry Cypress Trail is a logical next step after Coleman's Canyon Preserve that is doubling the size of the Jacobsville Natural Area. The trail key is a key sustainable to the sustainable plan to alleviate development pressures on Jacobsville Natural Area. So Coleman's borders while adding high priority facilities envisioned by Hays County. The Cypress Creek access, the multi-use trails is suitable for up to 5K run and longer, restored habitat and groundbreaking watershed science and research that's already happening, as well as this environmental education, youth groups, the tourists, with over 35,000 tourists visiting here and 60,000 at Blue Hole, this would add capacity for that. And just a unique outdoor recreation and entertainment for not only the folks in the valley, but all of our visitors from around the world. Jacobsville Natural Area has become a proven, county site with demonstrated operations supported by WVWA and the plentiful, knowledgeable volunteers from Hays County Master Naturalists, Hays County Gardeners have facilities there as well. So this site is just got tremendous potential. We think all the different aspects of environmental education, the conservation of wildlife viewing, the art and nature programs, ultimately one day some camping and possibly some small cabins, the work with the green vocational programs and Texas Conservation Corps. It's just a wonderful opportunity, we think, to get people outside, get them in nature, especially get kids out there. And so starting the economic breakdown. So this proposal really stems from us reinvesting the Coleman's Canyon funds that was one of the highest ranked projects in the first round of the POSAC reviews. The WVWA will use the equity, the 1.5 million land equity, and actually the closing is a $2 million purchase. So we would use that 2.6 million to purchase the 74-acre tract. And so going to this one, this is kind of showing that first round where this is what was requested of Hays County, the 2.6 for this 117. When the association is, if that is what the commissioners choose to do, we would use that money to purchase this 74-acre tract here. And in this concept, we're proposing The landowner is willing to sell this 5 acres for, we would get an appraisal, but we're estimating about 200,000 for that. And then 500,000 for this 20-acre parcel that would create this link back to Jacobsville Natural Area. And there's been discussions with the golf course that they would allow this easement. So this would create almost a 5-mile loop here in terms of a trail access. But then the 800,000 would be used as a conservation easement, as a conservation buyer here on the 54 acres. And I don't have it in this slide, but certainly if the county deemed it wanted to own this, we could do the entire tract for $2 million, which is what we're paying for it. But we thought, stretching it out with an easement allows, funds to go further for projects like we just saw. The demand, I know, is much greater than what the county has in its $75 million bond. So being able to do an easement allows for funds to be allocated to other projects, and then recovering these funds for us allows us to reinvest that $2.6 million elsewhere in the watershed. So we think that this, will leverage, the 1.5 million requested in this proposal would leverage about 3 million in assets for conservation and for public access there. So that's the outline. I'm happy to take questions and really appreciate the opportunity to add potentially this wonderful addition to the Coleman's Canyon and the Jacobsville Natural Area project. But happy to take any questions.
Thank you, David. Could you go back to the previous slide that shows the property in question?
Yeah.
So this is, you have two requests tonight. One, this is the Dry Cypress Creek Trail. And with that, you're proposing that potentially of the property that you may be acquiring, which is this Dry Cypress parcel, that 54 acres be in a conservation easement. Would there be any public access to those 54 acres?
I think that's negotiable. We don't have a buyer for that at this time. We had an interested buyer, but ended up not working out. We hope to close on if possible on the Colemans with the county by the end of October. We have a closing in November on this 74-acre tract. So our plan is to use these funds to acquire this. So these projects are linked together.
Got it. Questions for David?
David, Catherine here. Do you have trail construction dollars requested, or how are you proposing to build your trail?
Pretty much all the trails that we've built on this, we've done with volunteers through Master Naturalist Program. These are all primitive trails. We most likely, if we are going to build, some more formal trails, would go for grants or capital campaign fundraising. But we've been so fortunate with the restoration rangers that they come out every 2 weeks and do maintenance on the trails, build new ones, are really an amazing addition to this, and have provided a lot of match for the county in terms of their contributions. But that is a good question.
And so is the value of their trail construction shown in the budget? I'm sorry, I haven't read it.
I did not account for that in the budget, but that would be a good thing for us to assess in terms of the time that they put in, because it is significant and has been over the years. I could talk to them about that and kind of come up with some estimates of. We part of our plan is to use part of that 2.6 million for further planning and design as well. So, you know, that's one good thing about this program related investment from the foundation, is that they're allowing us to, as we get it paid back, to repurpose that money on other projects. So that's a really great leverage for us to be able to reapply those funds.
And are some of the trails that your volunteers build considered ADA accessible?
You know, most all of these in this upland, I would say, are not probably ADA. You know, there are ADA trails down in the riparian zone here. The county got a grant from, I think, LCRA to build a concrete trail that gets people right up next to the well. But as far as these uplands, these are just primitive, you know, cedar mulch trails that are, you know, running through these uplands here. And then one thing I did forget to mention, the landowner that owns the 5-acre parcel is the land right here. They were working on a donated conservation easement and the Eco Lab designation. This is all just incredible golden cheek warbler habitat, and he's agreed to, you know, allow a foot trail access through this to link over to the connection to the bat cave. So that's a really great addition there, as well as, you know, trails up through this upland. But you know, there's further planning we need to do to lay those trails out. There's old ranch roads that essentially, you know, we are accessible now, that you can walk through pretty much most of that area. But yeah, that's a really good point. It is very steep to get down in that canyon, so getting folks over into this zone will take some design.
Thanks.
Other questions for David? All right, well, hearing none, David, you want to move on to your next presentation?
Sure. Yeah, I'm excited to introduce Ray Dontilli. He's our creative director. He's been working with the family of Roy Creek Canyon, and really has a really great presentation about this very, very special place. So I'll turn it over to Ray Don. Thank you all for your time tonight.
Thank you, David.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Can hear you, thanks.
Great. Well, and then there was one. I think back, you guys began your work in March of 2020, and at that time, I wasn't even working with David Baker. So this has been going on a long time, and I'm happy to be the final one to offer you thanks for your service and congratulations on this long run of presentations. So Roy Creek Canyon Reserve seeks $1.5 million toward a conservation easement with guided public access, greater research, and protective action. I look forward to your questions, and I promise to keep my text brief. Long before she was governor, the story goes, Annie Richards encountered Venus Pool at Roy Creek Canyon and said, "After seeing this, I want to go throw a rock at Hamilton Pool." The incredible setting of this tributary to the Pedernales River upstream from Hammett's Crossing prompted our own David Baker, who has spent over half his life protecting Jacob's Well, to call it the most beautiful and biologically unique hill country treasure. Not all have considered the canyon's 70-foot sheer drop and 200-foot depth so magical. Coming out of the Depression in the shadow of World War II, rancher and owner John Honeycutt told hunting companion Red Adams he was tired of losing cattle that wandered to its edge and fell in. He shook his head and said, "I wish I could get rid of it. It's just a money pit." Red told him, "If you're ever serious about selling, let me know." The call came later that night. Red wasn't rich, but he and his friend Herschel Black agreed to split the 50 acres, each buying one side of the canyon in 1941. They made a handshake pact to cross the canyon to preserve its natural state. Except for a zip line, supply trolley, and minimal trails along the canyon rim and creek, the reserve remains untouched. This proposal arrives jointly from their families. Framing the terminus of Roy Creek at the Pedernales River, this deep canyon and undisturbed watershed represent one of the state's most important pristine biological study areas. The site rests at the northern tip of Hays County, like the crown jewel of our karst landscape. Its rare microclimate and perpetual springs provide scientists and students alike the opportunity to study the region's richest time capsule of biodiversity. 80 years later, a canyon visitor still must tumble in to experience its surreal ecosystem. Only 2 points of access exist on the Adams side. One is a long ladder descent to a steep, winding trail, and a cabin that serves as a gathering spot. The other is a tricky hike following the canyon rim to a narrow fissure in a massive limestone caprock called Needle's Eye. And then down to the creek side, where the spring pools and babbling falls that traverse the canyon are all but hidden. You see a dense, deciduous canopy of ancient cypress rises over 100 feet from the creek below, protruding above the canyon rim and obscuring aerial views. Underneath flourishes a diverse world of birds. On a recent springtime survey, these were observed: eastern phoebe, white-eyed vireo, canyon wren, northern cardinal, brown-headed cowbird, golden-cheek warbler, northern parula, red-eyed vireo, summer tanager, black-chinned hummingbird, black and white warbler, black-crested titmouse, black-throated green warbler, Carolina chickadee, Louisiana water thrush, common raven, rufous-crowned sparrow, Buick's wren, Carolina wren, mourning dove, wild turkey, ash-throated flycatcher, red-shouldered hawk, blue-gray gnatcatcher, great blue heron, belted kingfisher, green kingfisher, osprey, and solitary sandpiper, all in one morning. No wonder Red's wife Marjorie wrote Bird World. Her syndicated column ran for 2 decades in newspapers across Texas. She and Red produced the 1976 documentary film, What Good is a Warbler?, which was instrumental in the campaign to save the golden-cheek warbler. Her memoir, Birdwitched, How Birds Can Change a Life, captures her travels with Red to experience rare birds across the continent. She was a founding member of the American Birding Association, one of the first women accepted into the Texas Outdoor Writers Association. Her writing desk and multi-pane window onto the canyon, salvaged from Austin's Pease Elementary School, form a humble shrine to the birth of the warbler protection movement. She and Red were partners in the work and loved to share the canyon with local luminaries like Richards and Roy Bedichek, whom she called Betty the Birdman, John Henry Falk, Fred Gibson, the author of Old Yeller, Jake Pickle, and Cactus Pryor. They would send the kids to bed, recall Son Lou, then sit around the campfire into the night. That's when the kids really listened in. They ventured into broader conservation. Marjorie said she risked the loss of all her papers when she submitted a column explaining the Texas Water Plan. This boondoggle was supposed to cure dry West Texas by piping water there from wet East Texas. She asked in her 1966 4th of July column, must a city devour all the countryside as it grows, pushing the wonders of nature ever farther from our daily lives? While there is still time, can't we learn lessons from the Tokyos, the Londons, and the New Yorks, and somehow win the struggle to keep nature at our doorsteps? When making plans for growth, does your city government consult biologists, zoologists, ornithologists, botanists, or conservationists in efforts to preserve plant and wildlife? Isn't it worthwhile to set aside within our city limits some areas simply to be land, raw land, as nature made and clothed it, with its wildlife and plant resources undisturbed? Now, nature has not been so kind in the canyon. The cabin floated above the canyon floor in the 500-year flood of September 1952 that followed record drought. Receding waters left it perched high amid boulders and oaks. Winched down and repaired, the cabin stands today. And an ancient cypress by Venus Pool, which was split apart by the flood, recovered and bears a scar 20 feet up its massive trunk. Now, Marjorie and Red may have been birders first, but their canyon is equally valuable to aquatic species, including the blind albino shrimp, unique fish that thrive in its isolated fresh waters, and a newly discovered rare endemic salamander. Uracea live in caves and porous rock, often inaccessible to human observation. Today, detecting these salamanders requires long-term environmental DNA sampling at Roy Creek to correlate aquatic life with fluctuations in water quality. Rare native plants are oddly plentiful, offering botanists a rich and stable study area. This globally rare plant community occurs only in Texas and only on the cliff faces and lower slopes of such forested canyons on the Edwards Plateau. The reserve exemplifies the narrow horizontal bands where seepage from exposed limestone or water from perennial creeks consistently provides greater moisture than is available in adjacent slopes. Rare and disjunct plants among the couple hundred documented species include canyon chatterbox orchids, spice bush, yellow buckeye, Edward sedge, and hairy woodland brome. Landowners have generously offered controlled access to this diverse, pristine, open space for scientific research and education to better understand our karst ecosystem. Informally, they have reserved this unspoiled canyon and watershed for generations of conservationists, wildlife biologists, hydrologists, and geologists. So, where then is the urgency for public support of private land? The story is not new. Simple conservation between two friends can become unmanageable by the fourth generation today and beyond. Support from Hays County provides a platform for filling out the easement with academic and corporate sponsorships. Moreover, Roy Creek is trapped between urbanization from Dripping Springs and from Austin and surrounded by a new 1,400-acre development called Mirasol Springs. Sorry, I'm having a problem there with advancing slides. There we go. Without a conservation easement to endow ongoing and future efforts to embrace our natural history and to conserve pristine land, watersheds, and the plants and animals that they support, this Eden may pass. Without related but separate Herculean coordination to mitigate impacts from Mirasol Springs, the Roy Creek Basin will be unalterably spoiled. The Adams and Askins families wish to convert a handshake into a legal agreement to preserve and extend their voluntary legacy and defend the canyon's pristine landscape and waters, rare and endangered flora and fauna, and unique hydrogeologic formations. County investment will introduce limited public access, endow dispersed private ownership, and ensure essential research, monitoring, and protection. Red would say, give me a city kid for a day, and I can change his perspective for life. Imagine guided tours of students who may have known only urban life and community parks at best. With your support now, they too can descend into Roy Creek Canyon Reserve and see what once was and continues to be Texas. It was Marjorie herself who issued the challenge to you today when she wrote in the American Statesman in 1993, "We humans now have information that previous generations didn't have. We are beginning to understand at least some of the basics of how our planet works, and we are grasping our dependence on a healthy environment. But the destruction continues. I will not live to see if we have been able to save the golden cheek warbler for my great-granddaughter's grandchildren, but I speak now for their sake to say that too much is already gone, and some power somewhere must defend what is left. Who will it be?" I appreciate your time and welcome your questions.
Thanks, Ray Don. Powerful words. And I know that's why so many people on this call are here, and the voters of Hays County entrusted us with their funds to help make sure that we can protect properties like this. POSAC members, questions for Ray Don?
Wow, this is obviously an extraordinary place. So thank you for bringing it to our attention and sharing it with us. I have a question about the total, the value of the easement and whether or not the city of Austin or Travis County has been consulted on partnering in on this deal, since this would be kind of a water quality lands potential, also drinking water protection potential as this feeds into Pedernales, which feeds into the lakes, the Highland Lake system. And then secondly, is there a possibility for a donation component to the easement?
I would say yes to all of the above. Someone I need to be sure and recognize is Christy Muse, who is working, we kind of have given her a home base with WVWA, and we've been supporting her, but she has been spearheading what we call the Roy Creek Project, and she has done a phenomenal job over the last several months pulling together folks from the city of Austin, as you suggest, and from Travis County, from Hays County, Texas Parks and Wildlife, the universities, any of the nonprofits you can imagine. There have been a number of trips out there, and one of the main things that we've been able to achieve in those is to talk about what makes most sense. And one of the conversations has been, we have this kind of deadline to reach out to Parks and Open Spaces, to POSAC within Hays County. But we wanted to make sure that we put forward something that made sense. And the thought is that the total easement could be, many times the size of the 1.5 million is being requested. And so, yes, there would be a number of partners, and there are a number of, there's a number of groups that are already participating out there. The University of Texas has had a long program.
What kind of, so the 1.5 million, that it sounds to me like there's more money necessary to purchase the easement from what you're saying. Mm-hmm. And so what kind of total value on the easement, and what restrictions on development are we talking about?
As was described in the program, in the text, that they see no development beyond what is necessary to make it accessible. And in the case of Hays County taxpayers, the access that we envision is there are the 4 school districts, and students, high school, middle school students, from not just biology, STEM programs, but also arts and literature. There's any number of different field study opportunities there, but the development would be limited to trails mainly, to make it a little bit safer, but because it is it's very rough once you get above the area that that the families have kept as sort of the gathering spot. on one side of the canyon, there is already a hydraulic lift, and that is something that we would be able to add to the other side of the canyon side that I have mostly presented in this. So that would allow ADA access to the main part to the Venus pool and to the cabin area.
Can you go back to the slide with the development mapped out?
Sure. So, is that the one?
Yeah. So this Marisol Springs, is that platted and ready to go, under construction, et cetera?
If you go to the website that Marisol Springs has, there is a concept plan there, but there's an entire separate kind of effort, again, that Christy Muse has been leading. We're working to come up with sort of improved conservation development ideas. They have already, their initial plan is what many would consider a conservation development. But as you look at the footprint of Marisol Springs, that's the entire Roy Creek Canyon watershed. And so everything feeds down into this 50 acres before it goes into the Pedernales River. And so, there's going to be a lot more discussion, a lot more consideration. And
so you guys are people, or Christy or whomever, WVWA is in talks potentially to kind of preserve some of that upper portion of the canyon. And is that something that the county is also working on? I'm just curious. I don't, maybe Mark could speak to that.
Yeah, I can't really speak for county representatives, but I would just say that the great thing is that there are discussions going on with people who are, directly with the developers.
And the developers are not these two families?
No, it's the Marisol Springs. It's a software executive from Dallas.
And there's
but they've been very cooperative and definitely want to do the right thing. And so it's just going to take a while to work through it all.
The ranch that was and is now Marisol Springs, completely different ownership than the families that have had Roy Creek for all this time.
Correct.
And say again what the acreage is of the project.
Marisol Springs is about 1,400, and Roy Creek Canyon Reserve is 50 acres. It's basically split down the middle, 25 acres on either side.
And there's no proposed access for public that's not student based?
I would say that that's been the primary focus because it's education and research oriented. But as someone who has seen people of all different kinds go in there, I would love, and the families have been very amenable to arrangements that are safe, because as you see from the photo right there are some sheer drops. So arrangements that are safe and that do not damage the canyon.
I was gonna say, not every place lends itself to mass public access. I mean, I feel like there are some places that are pristine in nature, and allowing unfettered public access would be damaging to the resource, right?
Yeah. And in conversations already with some of the county staff, the reservations program for Jacob's Well, and that we've got that experience of being able to limit access that way, but still allow a broad representation. There's no desire to limit, by anything other than reducing numbers so as to protect the canyon.
Right. You have a reservation system for schools to reserve which days they're going to come out and bring their kids and stuff like that.
Right. Exactly.
And there's a road access to that tract. It's not landlocked the way the map looks.
Right. in the upper portion there, if you can see my cursor, that is Hamilton Pool Road. And then you have a turn in right there. And then they have a deeded easement to use that road. And that is access to both sides of the canyon.
Thanks.
And that doesn't go away with this Mirasol development?
No, they've been real cooperative.
Just for everybody, I'm looking at the Mirasol website. It's 55 conservation home sites on that 1,400 acres. Plus there's a small area that's away from this area for some cottages and an inn. Cottages are, looks like 30 cottages, kind of in a clustered format. The rest of it's all pretty wide open spaces.
Yeah, this is David. Yeah, there's also a plan to put a UT field station there, a research field station on along the river there across from Hannah's Crossing. And this is right across from Dead Man's Hole is on the other side there.
Right.
And then you've got West Cave is just across the river. So
right.
Incredible place. Never seen anything like it my whole life in the country. Really amazing.
And I mean, in addition, sort of went down the scoring criteria and kind of gave some very direct answers to those. So if it's all right, I'll send those to you also, just as follow up to this.
Who's proposed to hold the conservation easement?
We have had the Hill Country Conservancy out there. It's not determined at this point, but you know, we have had conversations with Hill Country Conservancy, which would be a natural. Frank Davis has been very helpful.
So I'm looking at this Marisol website too. This says there's a UT Austin field station component. Is that part of the development as envisioned?
It's a part of their development, and it would be roughly where I'm showing right here. It's in the Travis County portion.
Okay.
The Auberge Hotel that they have planned would be kind of in this area, and then there were some inn cottages that extend on into this, and then yes, Scott Tomhave is correct. It's 55, and I don't know the acreage, something like 10 acres per home, at least in this area, ringing the canyon.
Okay, thanks.
Members, other questions for Radon? All right, well, hearing none, thank you for presenting this and being able to showcase another one of the incredible places that we have in the Hill Country and give us more reason to work harder to preserve these for the next generations to come. Appreciate it, Radon.
As a final comment, I will say, I know that the landowners are on the call, and I'm sure they welcome any and all from POSAC out for a visit. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, great. With that, James, I don't know if Mark Kennedy, I know, was maybe going to join us. I do see his name on there. And we had an opportunity, we requested a discussion of the Hayes County Regional Habitat Conservation Plan, the RHCP, to help us understand a little bit better of how funds from the RHCP might be utilized as leverage for some of the projects that have been proposed to us. Not sure if Mark or...
No, Scott, I think there's a desire to push that to a later meeting
Okay,
at this point. I mean, it is pretty late as well.
sure.
Yeah, if it's okay with everybody, I wouldn't mind pushing. We finished court at about 5:45 today. And so I didn't get a hot second to compare notes with Jenny and Alexandra. So if you all don't mind pushing that, that would be a great favor to us. We would appreciate it.
Sure, no problem. Sure, it's been a long day. Thanks, Mark. The next item I wanted to bring up is that this is the end of our presentations that the public has made on the different projects. The applications have been brought forward. So now begins the hard work of scoring these. I think we have some 28 odd projects to work on, and that means a lot of work going forward for all of us. And I know that in the past, the way that we did this is we had the committees go ahead and meet separately and come up with scoring recommendations. Each member of POSAC could individually score a project regardless of their participation in one of the committees. The committee would then choose a member to present to the entire POSAC their scoring and suggestions. We tweak that and then come up with a final score together for each project. And I think that's what we discussed at the beginning of this second iteration of POSAC. And I want to make sure that everyone's still on board with that process for starting the scoring.
Yep.
That works for me.
Yes.
So then the second question is how do we go about this with so many projects? I think we have 11 projects for open space, 11 projects for urban parks, and 6 projects for connectivity, although there's been one question as to whether or not the proposed project, Texas State, one of their projects would be better categorized as a connectivity project. It's my suggestion we try to tackle 7 of these for each meeting, and that we divvy it up, not that we have all of one committee's projects at one meeting, but instead, given the level of work, that we take on a couple of projects for each subcommittee for the next several meetings until we get through this.
Sounds good. Take like 3 from each of the sections that have more projects and 2 from the other, like 2 trails, 3 open space, 3 urban, or something like that per meeting.
I think that's right. I can work with James and Alexander to come up with a list of kind of which ones we would tackle that hopefully we can get to you guys in the next couple of days so that there's time to then start preparing for our next meeting. I think we've all been a little bit lucky in that we've got to list it in for the past couple of months, but now we're going to have some work in between the meetings to get this scoring done. Does that sound good to everyone?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Just backing up here, as far as what we all decided early on, and step in here if it's not what we decided, but we talked about, the projects that pulled out that allowed for these additional funds plus the additional funds that we had set aside for the additional projects. How are we accounting for that in this process? Can I just get some more clarification there? I mean, we've had some circle discussions on this, a couple times now, but I want to make sure that, what we talked about early on, as far as, making sure these projects that submitted before were scored, were recommended, that we're not going to lose track of those.
Sure. I mean, I don't think we're going to lose track of them. There is the question of whether or not there's a comparison between these new projects and the old projects. I had a little bit of time today, unfortunately not enough to reach out to each one of you. I'd like to reach out to each one of you, as well as potentially to the court for some direction on this. I've heard different things as to what we need to do with regard to the projects that have been already scored. And I think that can be a lengthy discussion that, given the time today, we ought to have a different meeting. I know we kind of went around and about it before. And I think we need to consider that and also consider whether or not the commissioners want us to open up any of those at all, or that this new group is going to be scored on their own, and we're going to provide a recommendation of those without comparison to the existing projects that have already been scored in phase one. I'd like to table that and try to see if we can get direction, Mark, from the court on what to do on those, and whether or not they want us to lump these all together in our next level of scoring, or
Like
just to
slide
score
them
these new
in
projects.
terms of one master list, or if they want two separate lists.
Yeah, there's been discussion as to whether or not we provide special consideration, additional points for those projects. It's an impossible, I think of all the different arguments one way or the other, and I really have a hard time coming up with the right one. Scott, you brought up on multiple occasions an important argument that voters went into this with an understanding of that list, and that argument I hear, and I think that I'm wanting our political leaders to help guide us in determining what we do next with those. And if they can't provide guidance, then we can certainly tackle it ourselves.
I think that's fair, Scott. I think your suggestion's appropriate, in my view, that let's let the court needs to give us some direction here. I know where my tendencies lean, as you guys have heard before, but I think it's appropriate to get some more guidance from them. And I don't think that's too much to ask the court to give us some focus there.
Perfect, thanks.
Yeah, we will work on that. I can tell you that the charter and the bylaws, they do offer some guidance along that front. If you go back, and I won't bother you right at this hour, the detailed work of going back, but go back on your own time and take a look. But meantime, I'll get the court to, I'll try to put something in writing and have them give me feedback on what I'm trying to capture that I've heard them saying. And what I've heard them saying is that they do not expect you to fit all of your recommendations within $75 million, that they expect it'll be more than that. And honestly, with the possibility of match coming from unexpected sources, outside entities, then hopefully we multiply our monies here and wind up with a much better program anyway. So they know that that's likely coming. They did say, I've heard some court members say, but it had not been put to a vote yet, that they would probably, all things being equal, prioritize the first round because it was what we advertised to the public. So, but I'll get them to vote on some of those matters. That way you feel you're on firm ground. So.
Thanks, Mark. I'll go back and read the bylaws and refresh my memory. Were those written? Those were adopted prior to the second round coming out, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we had the first round of bylaws, and then they amended them for the
Right.
round.
We updated them.
Yeah. Okay.
And just, Mark, just remind me too, as far as what's out there, and as far as what was presented to the voters was a list of kind of project names. No amounts for sure were necessarily provided in terms of the amount of funding per project, but it was a list of projects that we intended to invest in. Is that correct?
That is correct. And the statement that was made was that the project is viable, site control, et cetera, And as long as the county can negotiate a deal that it feels is beneficial to the taxpayers, then these projects, what we choose to move forward with, no money amount associated with any of them. So, for instance, your modified recommendation to court on Presa Grande that you made recently is something that we'll communicate, and then the court will do what it does with it. So.
Thank you.
Perfect. So I'll work with James and Alexander to try to come up with a list for the next few meetings about the different projects to be scored. And then Mark, hopefully like last time, we'll feel comfortable going into executive session for that scoring process and be able to come out of that with recommendations once we've scored all of the projects together.
When you email us, can you also just email this committee, here's all the projects this committee is going to do, here's all the projects this committee is going to do, and then also kind of break them out by date? That would be great. Thank you.
Sure.
And if the committee members have any kind of preference, if you think, oh, this one's going to be easier than this one, and we'd like to push that to the end or bring it to the fore, if y'all will give that, just weigh in on that as well, that will assist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And once this list is created, if there are some objections to the way in which it's organized on a committee level, and you want to switch out some because you're saying, well, we really need to score this one at the same time we're scoring this other one, and by all means, so long as we're just getting through the work timely. All right. Well, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
All in
Good to see
favor?
y'all.
Thank
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.